Hello dear students. In previous chapter Basic Concepts of Chemistry, we discussed that Dalton was the first one who prescribed that each and every type of matter in the universe is made up of certain indivisible particles called atoms. But later on, after the discovery of subatomic particles like electrons, protons, neutrons, this theory was discarded because now we know that atom is further divided into many subatomic particles. In this chapter, we will discuss about the discovery of these subatomic particles and how these subatomic particles are located in an atom, that is the structure of atom. First, we will discuss how electrons were discovered. During 19th century, many scientists were working on electric discharge, and Faraday was the first one who was experimenting on electrical discharge in a glass tube, mainly called as discharge tube. And later on, J.J. Thomson also studied cathode rays. He discovered the cathode rays in a discharge tube experiment by passing a high voltage through a gas at very low pressure in a hard glass tube and observing rays moving from cathode towards anode. As you can see here in the video, that normally gases are poor conductor of electricity, but here gases are filled at very low pressure at a very high voltage. Then the gases start conducting electricity and some rays are generated from the gases, and these rays travel from cathode towards anode and they produce a kind of glow at this photographic plate. And these rays otherwise travel in a straight line, but when electrical field is applied, they get deflected towards positive side, proving that they are negatively charged. And when external magnetic field is applied, then also deflection was observed. So these kind of deflections, when inverting the direction of the magnetic field, deflection also get reversed. So this kind of experiments prove that these cathode rays consist of certain charged particles, because electrically charged particles always interact with electrical and magnetic field. And J.J. Thomson was the first one who calculated charge by mass ratio by measuring the deflection taking place in the presence of external electric and magnetic field. So what are the properties of cathode rays? Cathode rays start from cathode and move towards anode in a discharge tube. They produce a glow on hitting a fluorescent material. As you have seen that when otherwise they are not visible, but when they strike on a fluorescent material or a phosphorescent material, then a glow is produced. They always travel in a straight line. In the presence of external electric field, they deflected towards positive plate, suggesting that they consist of negatively charged particles called electrons, and they cause deflection in external magnetic field. It suggests that they are made up of certain charged particles, because charged particles interact in external magnetic field and show deflection. And the characteristics of cathode rays do not depend on the material of electrodes and nature of the gas used. Whenever some different gas was used in discharge tube, the same kind of deflection were observed, suggesting that the cathode rays characteristics do not depend on the material of the electrodes and the nature of the gas. And this concludes that electrons are the basic constituents of every atom. Next, J.J. Thomson in 1897 measured charge by mass ratio for electrons present in a cathode ray tube by applying electric and magnetic field perpendicular to each other as well as to the path of the electrons, as you can see here in the diagrams. And by observing the amount of deflection in electric and magnetic field, he was successful in calculating the charge by mass ratio for electrons, and this value was 1.7580 multiplied by 10 raised to the power 11 coulombs per kilogram. Actually, he suggested that the deflection caused by electric and magnetic field for cathode rays is dependent on mainly three factors: the charge present on the particle, higher the charge, greater would be the deflection; mass of the particle, lighter the mass, greater would be the deflection; and thirdly, the magnitude of electric or magnetic field applied. Higher the magnitude applied, greater would be the deflection. So by balancing the deflection in such a way, he calculated the value of charge by mass ratio for electron. Later in 1909, Millikan determined the charge on the electrons by his famous oil drop experiment. In this experiment, oil droplets in the form of mist were allowed to fall through this tiny hole in the upper charge plate of an electric condenser, and these oil droplets start falling towards the lower plate by the force of gravitation, and their falling were observed by microscope. Later he passed a beam of X-rays into the air present in the condenser, and these air particles were ionized by the X-rays, and these electrons which were produced from the air molecules were acquired by these oil droplets. Hence the air droplets becomes negatively charged, and by applying an external electric field to the upper plate, positive charge to the upper plate he applied, and he saw that these oil droplets start rising upwards opposite to the force of gravitation. And by adjusting electric field in the experiment, he was successfully able to make the oil droplets stationary in his experiment. And for that particular electric field, by measuring the values of that electric field and the mass of the droplet, he calculated by the force of gravitation which was experienced by the air droplet, and he successfully calculated the charge of the electrons as minus 1.6 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulombs. And then mass was calculated from this value of charge, as Thomson suggested the charge by mass ratio. Then by dividing charge by the charge to mass ratio, it was possible to find the mass of electron as 9.1094 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 31 kilogram. So these were very important experiments who successfully determined the charge and mass of the electrons. In 1836, Goldstein also studied discharge tube experiment with some alteration. He used a perforated cathode in place of normal cathode plate, and he observed a different types of rays which were moving in the opposite direction of the cathode rays, and he named them as anode rays. As you can see, cathode rays are traveling from cathode towards anode. So these oppositely charged rays are also traveling from anode towards cathode, and these rays are passing through the perforations of the cathode, hence they are also called as canal rays. And Goldstein also observed that when these rays are also passing in a straight line, and when an electric field is applied, so these rays deflected towards negative plate, suggesting that they are made up of certain positively charged particles, and he named them as protons. And also these rays show deflection in the presence of external magnetic field. So let us discuss now the properties of anode rays. These rays travel from anode towards cathode, produce a glow on hitting a fluorescent material. They travel in a straight line. All properties are similar to the cathode rays, and in the presence of external electric field, they deflected towards negative plate, suggesting that they are consisting of positively charged particles called protons. And they also cause deflection in external magnetic field. But the important difference between the cathode and anode rays is that the characteristics of anode rays depend on the material of electrodes and the nature of gas. As in case of cathode rays, that E/M ratio was independent of the nature of the gas. Means for any gas taken in the discharge tube, Thomson found similar E/M ratio. But here in case of anode rays, this E/M ratio varies for different gases, because after removal of electron from an atom, the leftover particle as a whole travels in the form of anode rays. So obviously it will have different number of protons and different number of mass, hence E/M ratio will vary. And for hydrogen gas, it was found to be maximum, suggesting lightest mass particle of anode rays. And further, this E/M ratio of hydrogen was used to calculate mass of one proton. And after that, proton was also regarded as fundamental particle of every atom. Now charge on proton was calculated as positive magnitude. Magnitude is similar to that of the charge on electron, but with opposite sign, that is positive charge 1.6 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulomb, and it is equal to 1 unit positive charge of proton. Mass of one proton is 1.67 10 raised to the power minus 27 kilogram, and mass of proton is about 1837 times, approximately 2000 times the mass of the electron. After the discovery of electrons and protons and the calculations of their masses, it was very much clear that electrons are the particles which have approximately negligible mass, because the mass of the electron is 1/1837 times the mass of one proton. So electrons do not contribute towards the mass of the atoms. But after these discoveries, it was found that the masses of atoms were approximately double the number of protons present in a particular atom. So this was a challenge in front of scientists, that there must be some more particles present in the atom which contribute towards the mass of the atoms. So in that time, during 1932, Chadwick was experimenting. He bombarded a thin sheet of beryllium with alpha particles and observed highly penetrating rays consisting of neutral particles, because these rays were not getting deflected in any external electric or magnetic field, hence suggesting that they are consisting of neutral particles. And he named them as neutrons because they do not have any charge. And the masses of neutron was found to be nearly the same as that of hydrogen atom, that is, it's approximately equal to the mass of proton. And he calculated the mass of neutron as 1.675 10 raised to the power minus 27 kilogram. And neutron was also considered as a fundamental particle of every atom. Next, we will discuss various subatomic particles and the charge and masses of these particles. Firstly, electron. It is symbolized as E, and exact or absolute charge in coulombs is minus 1.602 10 raised to the power minus 19, and is considered as a relative charge of minus 1, which we say that electron carries 1 unit negative charge. So this value of minus 1.602 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulomb is taken as minus 1 relative charge. And the mass of electron is 9.109 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 31 kilogram. And this is in terms of unified mass. It is 0.0005 very less, and it is considered to be as zero, means electrons are the particles which have negligible mass. Next is the proton. Proton is symbolized as P, and charge is exactly opposite to the electron, that is positive 1.602 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulombs, and it is taken as positive 1 unit charge, plus 1 charge, and the mass of one proton is 1.673 multiplied by 10 raised to the minus 27. 673 is the round off figure, and mass of one proton in terms of unified mass is 1.00727, and it's approximately taken as 1 unit mass. And neutron symbolized as N, charge 0, and mass of one neutron is approximately similar to the mass of proton. It's 1.675 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 27, and its mass is, in terms of unified mass, it is 1.00867, and it is also considered to be as 1 unit mass. So you can see that protons and neutrons both contribute towards the mass of the atom, whereas electrons are the particles which have negligible mass. And you can say electrons have approximately 1/1837 times the mass of the proton. So I think all these things are clear to you all. The important thing that you need to do is to learn these masses and charge values of electrons, protons and neutrons